Welcome to Delicious and Nutritious, where we use the best quality ingredients to cook the tastiest food. And today, I hope you guys have been liking the channel. We are going to get after something unique, fun, and out of the ordinary. We are going to make sweet potato brownies. Yes, I said it. The brownies are basically made entirely of sweet potatoes, which obviously do have a little bit of additions in them. So this is gonna be a really fun and unique recipe for a lot of you guys that maybe have not really taken cooking to a different type of level. So without further ado, some of you guys may be like, is it really gonna taste too good? I promise you, after this recipe, it's gonna change the way that you think about food forever, because there's no way, even if you don't like sweet potatoes and you're like they don't do anything bad to me, I just don't really care for them. Trust me, this recipe is going to be for you. So before you start this recipe, I suggest that you guys bake a sweet potato. This sweet potato is already ready. It is baked, it is ready to go. So having this ready to go, it's already good, and it has been in the refrigerator, which is why it is a little bit perspiring right now. Number two, we're gonna need 1 cup of that baked. So beforehand, you start the recipe. Obviously, that's gonna take a while. It's not as easy without that. We are gonna need regular, it says yams, okay? So 2 cups of grated yams. I have a Hannah sweet potato, which is gonna be a white one, and then a regular yam / sweet potato right here. Slightly different, but sometimes you don't have the option to get either a sweet potato or a yam, so we have sweet potatoes. We're gonna need 2.5 tablespoons of coconut flour. Just remember, it says tablespoons. One time I did 2.5 cups and it absolutely trashed the recipe. I was like, this is like chalk. You gotta make sure it's 2.5 tablespoons, nothing more. We obviously have a pinch of salt. Always we use salt in recipes. We're using pink Himalayan sea salt. And then 1/3 to a 1/2 cup of local organic honey. We have some white honey here from Whole Foods that is gonna be organic. Then we have 2 whole eggs, prefer that the eggs be organic and pasture raised, not pasteurized, pasture raised eggs. And then we have our trusty coconut oil. We're gonna need a 1/2 cup of that. And then one of the things that's gonna bring it all together, we have organic cacao powder. That is going to help bring the entire recipe to the brownie color, and it's also gonna add the flavor of the chocolate. And then we have a teaspoon and a 1/2 of baking soda. It calls for baking powder, but there's cornstarch and other things in there as well that I'm really not the biggest fan of, so I just use baking soda by itself. And then finally, we have a bag of dark chocolate baking chips. We have Lily's right here. These are gonna be less sugar, sweet life is what they call it. So they use stevia to sweeten these as opposed to regular cane sugar, which if you don't have a problem with cane sugar, I would probably go with that option. But if you do, then having something like Lily's chocolate will be it. But if you have a problem with sugar, then the honey is probably gonna bother you a little bit as well. And then finally we have vanilla. This is gonna be my non-alcoholic vanilla. I always try to go for the non-alcoholic. It is with glycerin instead of alcohol. So everything you have right here ready to go. As far as our utensils, we need a dish. We need our cups and our measuring spoons, and then we need a grater as well as our bowls. So we're gonna need 2 different types of stainless steel bowls, and then our oven is gonna be wanted to put on right now for 360 degrees because we're gonna be baking this for approximately 30 minutes. So with all that said, let's start off. Number 1 step is gonna be combining all of the wet ingredients into one place. That's why I say 2 bowls, because you do all the wet ones, then you wanna combine the dry ones and make sure you mix them up so that they actually get all mixed together, because if you add them in with the wet, sometimes that's a little bit of a problem. So wet ingredients are starting right now, including both sweet potatoes. So first and foremost, we need to grate. This is not the most efficient grating system that I have right here. You could probably use a food processor as well, but we're gonna need 2 cups. So what we're gonna do is just grate our face off, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have it, the grated sweet potatoes. 1 cup's in there already. That is a workout and a half. I never knew that grating literally would make such a mess. It makes such a mess when it comes to these sweet potatoes. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in there, and then I'm gonna clean them up real quick and I'll be right back. So the hard work is done, and now we are getting into the sweet potato that is already baked for us. So if you're really into the fiber, which I am, I'm not gonna do it today for time's sake. What you can do is you can food process the skins, because you don't wanna put the skins straight in there, but I don't wanna miss out on the skins either. And that would allow you to have the skins in there without having a big chunk of skin in your mouth, because Yeah, that's not really gonna be appetizing for a lot of people, especially if you're trying to cover the fact that these are sweet potatoes. And you may not want to even tell people that they're sweet potatoes as long as, you know, nobody has an allergy for sweet potatoes. You could put them out as a dish with something else and just be like, hey, anybody have an allergy to sweet potatoes for my cooking? Not mention that it's going to be in the brownies. See if they do, and if they don't, then try it out. See if they'll know that they're made out of sweet potatoes, because they do come out extremely good. And our next step is going to be 1/2 cup of coconut oil. So if this is not room temperature, you are gonna have to heat it up a little bit. Fortunate enough for us here, it is not going to be it. It's already melted for us. It's been a little humid out here, so it's been kind of just staying at a melted temperature. And then next, we want our 2 whole eggs going in here. And then we are going to start mixing this. Make sure that we mix it around a lot. We still have a little bit more to add in here. Especially get those sweet potatoes all mixed up. Okay, and the next 2 things, we're going to use honey. I guess you could also use maple syrup. So this is gonna call for 1/3 to 1/2 cup. And 1/2 cup is gonna make it sweeter if you like it on the sweeter end. And if it's on the 1/3 cup, it's going to be a little bit more on the, I mean, it's still gonna be kind of sweet, but a little bit on the less sweet end, I guess you would call it. So this honey is extremely thick, as I have recommended to you guys. So this one is going to be the white honey, organic, 100% raw. You'll notice when you start using raw organic honey, the consistency between regular, what you think of as honey, and what actually is honey is crazy different. This is like goo. Regular honey can be modified and heated to kind of make it more liquidy at room temperature. So that's one thing to take into account, that there's even been stuff in honey to be like cornstarch and other things. So you really want to get this raw, local, organic honey if at all possible. And you guys may have seen me do this in a specific order. There is a specific order to this because I put the coconut oil into the 1/2 cup before I use the honey, because I know that it is a thicker one, right? So I allow the coconut oil to coat the cup, which then allows me to pour the honey out of it and none really sticks in. If you guys can see right there, there's really no honey sticking in there because the coconut oil went in first. So there is a little bit of strategy behind why I did specific things at specific times here. And now we are really starting to get into it. I'm just gonna break up a little bit of the sweet potatoes a little bit more so I can get them throughout the entire mixture. And last but not least, we have 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract for the liquid. Non-alcoholic vanilla extract, and there you go. And then we're gonna need the 2 tablespoons, 2.5 tablespoon for the other ingredients. So now we are gonna go into the dry ingredients and then we're gonna combine them together. But first we need to stir this a little bit. I'm gonna get a little bit bigger of a spoon. The other spoon, although I do like to use those small spoons sometimes, I just wasn't getting enough leverage on these sweet potatoes to really break them up. All right, that is what it's gonna look like. I know what you're thinking. You're like, dude, this is not gonna come out good. Trust me on this one. It's gonna blow your mind. Just wait. And number 1, we're going in with the coconut flour. So 2.5 tablespoons, guys, tablespoons. Nothing more, nothing less. You guys know, if you've been cooking with me for a little while, I'm a little bit of a rough cooker. I'm not always exactly measured up, and it's okay, it always comes out good. So there's always room to be a little bit loose if you want to, but if you want to do the exact measurements, you have that option for you too. And then we're gonna add in our pinch of sea salt, so just a couple turns. You guys do have a salt shaker. And next we are going to go, I really like this brand. You guys probably have seen me use it a couple of times. It's called Nutritious. I like what they stand for. I like their ethics behind their company, and that's usually what really drives me. So this is gonna be a 1/3 cup. Our 1/2 cup is dirty over there. I have not cleaned it yet. So we are gonna go in here with 2 1/4 cups to make the entire 1/2 cup of raw cacao. And you guys may hear me say cacao. It is cacao, C-A-C-O. So cacao is modified to make cocoa. So you wanna make sure when you're cooking like this, we're using the straight raw ingredients. So this is going to be C-A-C-A-O, cacao powder. You can see it right there. Okay, and now we are gonna do a teaspoon of baking soda. Please make sure to get the natural version of baking soda. It should be strictly sodium bicarbonate, not anything else. So teaspoon and a half. And then I'm gonna add in here for you guys a little bit of arrowroot powder. So I'm gonna go for approximately a 1/3 teaspoon of arrowroot powder. And now it's time to stir this all together as I make a mess. Be careful. The cacao powder is very jumpy. It's very, very powdery. It is not a heavy powder by any means, so it is going to jump, and please make sure to take your time when stirring this up and save your white countertops if you do have your white countertops, and don't do as I just did. And now it's time to combine. So since we have already stirred up the wet ingredients, we are safe to add in the dry ingredients, and then we're gonna stir, and the last thing we're gonna put in after we stir it all together is going to be the chocolate chips. Let's stir this together. Once again, be careful. The cacao is very light powder. It goes everywhere very fast, very easily, without any effort. So you'll know when your stirring is pretty good is when you can barely see any of the sweet potatoes because they are all covered in cacao. And you're not gonna see much of the cacao dust, as I will call it, on the rim of the bowl as well. So if you guys were to be vegan, what you could do is potentially use flax eggs. I haven't really tested that too much, but you could substitute eggs for flax eggs. Number two, if you guys are not doing sugar, what you could do is use stevia in the place of honey, but then you're gonna lack some consistency as far as the congealedness. So the flax eggs might be the way to go if you're gonna use that, because the flax kind of gives it that congealedness as well. So you wanna kind of take that into account. And it's definitely gonna change the flavor, maybe not so much the texture, but look at that, guys. Now look at this. From what it once was a second ago, look at that now. Much more brownie batter-esque as opposed to the other way around where it just looked like a bowl of randomly mashed sweet potatoes. We now have what looks to be brownie batter. Isn't that crazy? And now it is time to move into putting it into the dish and then popping into the oven. Remember, 360 degrees. So I suggest that you guys use a little bit of parchment paper. You don't have to, but it makes it a whole lot easier to take this out because remember, number one, you're gonna wanna put a little bit of coconut oil on the parchment paper, but if you're putting it straight into a glass pan, put a little bit more, maybe even some butter if you guys are okay with butter. Dairy works well for your system, or you could use other things such as ghee as well, or butter or coconut oil, and it's gonna prevent it from baking it onto the dish, which is the key here. Now that we have the parchment paper in there, just a smidget of coconut oil, and then we're gonna rub this around real quick, get it ready to go. And finally, the transfer of the brownie batter in here to make ourselves sweet potato brownies. I suggest you guys get all of this. It's super tasty. You wanna make as much as possible. You could use 2 spoons here if you want to, if you're a little bit against using your finger. I am totally not. But I am all about scraping this bowl clean to make sure we have every last bit of brownie into this mixture. Check this out, guys. This once was sweet potatoes is now looking a whole lot more like brownie mix. You guys could tell me I'm wrong. Maybe I'm a little delusional because I don't eat normal brownies. But look, come on. You gotta say that it does look like brownie batter. Here we have it, guys. The brownie mix is going to be going right into the oven, 30 minutes. I would suggest having a toothpick. You wanna operate it just as any other brownie cupcake mix. You wanna be able to push in there, pull it up without pulling out any of the things. You want it to be completely done and ready to go. And then the edges will start to crisp up a little bit. So into the oven, and then we'll be right back. And here we have our grand finale final product. So you guys did notice, I did not include the baking chips, chocolate chips, cacao chips into this recipe, but it's personal preference. I think it adds an amazing touch and it's really, really simple to do. Obviously, it's all you do. You can do a half bag, full bag. I typically do about a half bag to start off with and I see how many chips are gonna be in there. And then if I want more, then I go ahead and do it. I think it adds a great touch, but whatever you want to do, it's totally up to you. It's going to be your recipe. Okay, so here you have it, freshly baked. That's the wonder of using parchment paper here. So is all you have to do, obviously now, is cut it and try it. There you go, look at that right there. Nice deep chocolate brownie. Bon appetit. It's really good. I'm not used to not having the chips in there. The chips definitely add like a new layer of brownie in there, but this is extremely tasty. So then is all you need to do. Cut it up, serve it, chunks, squares, rectangles, whatever that is for you, it's gonna work. But most importantly, it's gonna be super delicious and it's nutritious. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to cook another delicious and nutritious treat this time. And I appreciate you guys. And these are gonna be dark chocolate brownies. If you want them to be a little bit lighter, what you can do is sub out a little bit of the cacao powder, keep it in the same ratio with a little bit of coconut sugar so you can kind of push it a little bit more towards the lighter and a little bit more towards the sweeter, because that's really the difference between dark chocolate and light chocolate. It's the amount of cacao or cocoa, depending on if they use cacao or modified cocoa, and pushing it more towards the sweetness. So thank you guys for cooking with me today. Appreciate you guys being a part of Delicious and Nutritious, where we are gonna cook more food so that we can keep changing the world one bite at a time. I hope you guys have a wonderful day.